morning once again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to day 2 of the annual conference 2012 of the Institute of Internal Auditors, Bombay chapter. We had a richly rewarding day yesterday, and I'm sure we're all set for more inspiration, more knowledge, and more shared experiences today on day 2. Our theme for the first session today is the voice of the internal audit profession, and I'm honored to welcome our distinguished speakers who will speak on this subject in the first session. Mr. Shantanu Ghosh of IIA Kolkata, Mr. Satish Chawla, President IIA India, Mr. Phil Tarling, who will join us for a brief question and answer session, and Mr. Huzaifa Unwala, who will join us a little later for a landmark release of the first publication of IIA Foundation. I'd now like to invite to welcome you and set the tone for this special session, Mr. Shantanu Ghosh of IIA Kolkata. He is a fellow of ICAI and a member of IIA Incorporated USA and has rich experience spanning over 3 decades in statutory and internal audit, both in large public sector and private sector companies, as well as investigations, consulting, and company law. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shantanu Ghosh.
President IIA India, Mr. Satish Chawla, Phil Tarling, ladies and gentlemen. President Bombay chapter, Mr. Bhaskar. It's a proud privilege for me to be present here before all of you. I will briefly describe the IIA perspective in India. More than 3 decades ago, a few like-minded people belonging to corporate sector and profession realized, I would say more than 3 decades ago they realized that internal audit cannot be the only domain of chartered accountants, or for that matter accountants alone. And therefore, they realized that essentially it should be a multidisciplinary function, because internal audit essentially is a function of the management, or a management function as we can call it. So therefore, they wanted a forum or a platform, and IIA Inc. having already started long back, they sought affiliation with the IIA Inc. USA, and IIA India started rolling from Bombay, as it was called then, as the first chapter in India. It was followed by Delhi, it was followed by Madras, Calcutta, and thereafter of recent origin is Bangalore and Hyderabad. For your information, it was decided by the IIA Council that wherever more than 100 members are not expected, or the smaller places, smaller towns and cities, IIA activity must spread, and it must go to all segments of the society, and the need of internal audit must be felt by people at large, and therefore small audit clubs have been established. In a number of cities all over the country, audit clubs have been established. Incidentally, some of the audit clubs have already exceeded the 100 numbers and are likely to be incorporated as chapters depending upon certain paraphernalia, formalities being completed. And I'm very happy to announce that Baroda, a chapter affiliated to the club or affiliated to the Bombay chapter, has done exceedingly well. I was fortunate enough to see some of their programs, and I visited Baroda a few months back, and it was doing exceedingly well. Those of you who are representing chapters present this morning here, I will advise that kindly go ahead, support them, spread the arms of IIA so that it becomes really much more effective. Let me reiterate at this juncture that internal audit function, as I mentioned already, is not only restricted to the accountants, whether it's a chartered accountant or a cost accountant, but you need to carry out internal audit with multidimensional professionals who are likely to give active support to the management. Because it is essentially a management function, and management must be given what it is expecting from the internal auditors. It is not merely your financial accounts, it is production, it is, in fact, the entire gamut of the operations of the industry is to be expected to be covered. The worry is with the organized industry, because we are facing all over the globe all kinds of scams and irregularities. But the problem is we are worried about small and medium enterprises where it is not so organized. So therefore, internal audit training has become essential, and I'm sure my president, my friend Satish Chawla, will be talking about that, the future programs of the IIA in India. It is well felt, when I was present last evening when the award presentation was going on, it was very interesting to find that wonderful efforts are being made by some of the corporates. But are we aware that all the corporates are following that kind of the disciplined approach? Or do they know that what they want from the internal auditors? I have my own doubts. Even though I can safely say that what the situation what was 2 decades before has substantially changed, and even those companies which are absolutely family-controlled companies, they have also come out of their shells, and they are expecting internal audit to be carried out in a much more broad-based terms so that they can add value to the organization, which was not felt earlier. When the MAUCARO, that is Manufacturing and Other Companies Auditors Report Order, came into force in 78, way back in 78, it was some kind of a stamp mark of the internal auditor. I mean, the question was whether it is commensurate with the size and nature of the industry. So it was some kind of a dhobi chhap, it's a stamp marking that yes, it is commensurate. Nobody really felt the need of internal audit. Nobody really decided whether we are going to take help of internal audit. Internal auditors, not merely auditors, as you all know, they are also actors, they are acting as consultants, advisors to the management. They can take a give a good lead to the industry where it can approach, go ahead and do better. Unfortunately, in India, still there are companies who are not really feeling about it. Yesterday evening when the panel was discussing about the expectation of the management from the internal auditors, it was very clearly felt that there is a wide communication gap even today. So I expect that all of you who have been enriched with the discussions, the deliberations that have been made from yesterday and will continue today till evening, you will get back to your respective organizations with enriched knowledge, and I'm sure you'll be able to take active part in the activities of the Institute of Internal Auditors, not only as accountant, but as good internal auditors to make valuable contribution to the society. At this stage, I will stop my deliberations. After my friends Satish and Phil will speak on some more, I may add something more thereafter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh, for giving us your perspective and insight on IIA India. I'd now like to invite to share with us his thoughts a person who has a rich experience of over 4 decades, spanning the automotive, coal and pharma sectors in the areas of finance, systems, audit, risk and governance. He retired in January 2012 from Ranbaxy Laboratories Limited after 33 years of service as Vice President Global Internal Audit, where he spearheaded the governance, risk and control framework and processes in over 100 countries. He is now associated with Ranbaxy as Advisor Risk Management and is also a director in VFM Softech Private Limited. Among the many accomplishments during his long and illustrious career is his being a member of an elite task force set up by the Government of India on valuation in mergers and acquisitions in 2005. He has been associated with the Institute of Internal Auditors for over 2 decades in various capacities and was president of the Delhi chapter in 1999. Ladies and gentlemen, please do warmly welcome President IIA India, Mr. Satish Chawla.
Good morning. Thank you. Very good morning to all of you. Mr. Phil, Mr. Ghosh, thank you for coming here. It's indeed my pleasure to be here with you, and I'm honored. Thanks to Mr. Bhaskar for his special encouragement to me to come here. I have only a few minutes, as you could see, so I will not speak much, except a few, maybe I will share some experiences of mine which may help you in doing your job better. Before that, I will speak about IIA India. It's a national body. It's affiliated to IIA Inc., and it has 6 chapters all over India with about 2,500 members, and Bombay chapter being the leading chapter. Experience of running an organization, experience of running an institution is a great experience which I'm sure will help doing our job, doing our profession better. How to take people with you, how to take different opinions, and how to harmonize them and put towards a better common goal. You could see that there are many old people in IIA India, including myself. Yes, old is gold, but at the same time, young people have to come up. And it is our endeavor, it is my endeavor in particular, to improve the processes of election, nomination, so that the younger people take more active role in the institution building. My request to the team here who is gathered to take more active interest, and please write your suggestion at the email which is president@iiaindia.org. Please give your suggestions so that we deliberate with your suggestions and make this institution more vibrant, more prosper. You see, it's like a small family. IIA India is a national institute which is affiliated to IIA Inc., but IIA India is a very small family, just about 2,500 members. Some of the chapters, like a family, you know, some of the children, there are 6 children, say, for example, and the elder brother is, maybe we can call it as a Bombay chapter, and then followed by other ones. The efforts have to be of the elder brothers also to help younger brothers to come up, to encourage them, to support them, to guide them, to see that they come up from their current levels to the higher levels. Similarly, the audit clubs, we have established audit clubs in a few cities. Like Mr. Ghosh has mentioned, Vadodara Audit Club is doing very well. Bhilai Audit Club also was doing better. However, in the last few years, perhaps due to whatever reasons, they have not progressed that much as what we expected. We have tried to streamline, I would not say streamline, we will try to improve or strengthen the processes this year. We have made 3 committees consisting of members from various chapters and not necessarily presidents. One of the committees is Professional Development Committee, which is headed by Nagesh. He is the vice president of the institute, and which has a lot of members. I'm very happy to see the response from the members and the follow-up which Nagesh has done in the last 1 month. I am very confident that this committee will do a great job in harmonizing, in leveraging the strengths and knowledge of all the people in the country on internal audit. My team consists of 5 office bearers beside myself. One is Nagesh Pinge, he is from Bombay chapter. We have a senior vice president who is Subir Datta, he is from Calcutta. Unfortunately, he could not come here because of personal problem in the family. Then we have Mr. Venkateshan, he is from Chennai chapter, Madras chapter. Ms. Shivali Marfatia, you all know, she is from Bombay chapter. And Akshay Bhalla, he is from Delhi chapter. He is the treasurer. Another committee which we have formed is on research and survey committee. This is an area where, in our opinion, we have not done well in the last few years. So this committee, which is headed by Akshay and has members from other chapters, they are going to look into various areas where we can do research and do surveys so that the visibility and advocacy of IIA profession goes up further. We have also formed an advocacy committee which is headed by our Senior Vice President Subir Datta and senior members like Naren, Mr. Ghosh, they are all there. These committees will work, and in the next couple of months, it takes time to have long-term benefits. But I am pretty sure that in the next few months, you will see results on both visibility and advocacy. I would like to take a few minutes to share my experiences. These are my personal experiences, and it has not been discussed with IIA India, so just take it totally personal. Last 5-7 years, there have been much positive development for internal auditors, thanks to scams and other things. The awareness level which was there earlier, today has gone up quite substantially. And now the challenge is on internal auditors how to perform, how to perform better, and how to leverage this opportunity which has been given, rightly or wrongly. Independence, support to auditors have been fluctuating. As Mr. Ghosh has said, it is somewhere, is a total, in the country, if you look at it, somewhere it is at 0 to 10 scale, maybe 9 scale, you find companies, good companies, they are having independent board and real professional board, and an audit committee consisting of competent people and independent people. Whereas there are other companies where they are struggling to find the feet of independence. They are struggling to talk about governance. They talk about it, but they do not practice it. So there are wide experiences of the auditors in our own country in different organizations. And some of the experiences are really horrified. In my own company, when I have worked in Ranbaxy till January this year, I've experienced audit committees and boards which was owner-dominated, independent chairman, different audit committees of different people, and now in the last 3-4 years, Daiichi Sankyo representatives on the board and audit. One man that makes the difference in the audit role is the chairman of audit committee. One person can make significant improvements in the audit culture. And therefore, the auditors, in my opinion, have to work upon, have to build a relationship, have to understand the audit committee chairman and the audit committee members, sometimes even educate them, sometimes inform them, because many times I found the audit committee members, they are not that much informed. They are member of audit committee because of their position in the board, whatever way it happened. But their awareness of the internal audit value-added function perhaps needs to be improved upon, and auditors have a role to do that. I worked with Tajinder Khanna, Shri Tajinder Khanna, who is the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi. He was the chairman of the company for a couple of years, and I had the privilege of working with him. As a bureaucrat, I never expected him to have a larger vision of internal audit than many of the other counterparts. When he was the chairman, he expected me to overview all the functions. He says, you are internal auditor, but I said, I am not expert in quality, in technical. He says, don't worry. You are an overviewer. Every function has their expertise, but I want some overviewer. So that support from Tajinder Khanna to the auditor in the audit committee or in the board meeting gave a lot of fillip to the internal audit function. And thereby, our competence have to now play a role how to function more effectively. The challenges of internal audit are there because a lot of our time is being spent on preparation, report, audit report, modifying, presenting, dealing with the auditees on their differences, minor differences, or how you say that and how you have written this. This is not what we said. This is not what we mentioned to you, all that. A lot of productive time, I'm sure many of you who are in audit profession would have seen that go waste, I would say, in the vetting process of informing audit committee findings to the audit committee or the board. Though it gives some learning, definitely, more improvements, but perhaps we need to work upon the processes leading to these audit reports going to the audit committee and see how do we improve the processes and avoid or minimize the productive time spent by the teams. Sometimes the team get frustrated too. The team who has done the audit and they have given some findings, and for a small error of words or grammar or something like that, in the audit committee meetings, if the support of the independent auditors or audit member is not there, the situation goes totally haywire. And at the end of the audit meeting, we find that what all we have done, it was just a waste. Just because of one person who did not want to support us, the whole situations go haywire. But these are the challenges which we all have to live with. We have to improve our competence. And that is what I am focusing on. There are two areas where I would focus upon in the next 5 minutes, not much. One is on our own competence. My experience in audit for so many years, and I have maybe interviewed many managers in my company, both in finance and audit. My experience is that we need to build more competencies. More competencies. The domain knowledge has to be increased. Our IT knowledge has to be substantially increased. Some of the companies, like we saw yesterday, L&T, Mahindra and all that, they are fine. They have, perhaps, as Mr. Ghosh has mentioned, leveraged that, and then they have reached the scale of 9, 8, 10, whatever. But it is a constant improving. The whole monitoring system, the whole MIS system, what it used to be, today it is all on dashboards. But how many companies have this dashboard monitoring system? How many companies have an MIS which gives them what they want to do without asking from CFO or other functions? Very few companies, I can say, very few companies. There are only few companies in this India, I can say, who are relying on management information system coming from the system itself. Most of the company or many companies have SAP, Oracle, this, that, but still the system-based information is much less. It is all made, some human intervention by CFOs or his team, etc., is there. So the knowledge of IT, leveraging IT function is a very important. The third important, which actually should be the first, is the right assessment of expectations. We have problems. Internal auditors have problems because we have various stakeholders. The management would like us to focus on efficiencies, and that is what it has to give value. We have to give value to the organization to improve the efficiencies. Whereas, because of compliance requirements, regulatory requirements, we are supposed to work more on the compliance. So it's a balance, fine balance we have to draw between the compliance and the efficiencies. And that is where many times I find, in my own experience, that the auditors do focus on compliance because that is what is important, and less emphasis is given on efficiencies. And if efficiencies do not improve, if we do not add value on efficiencies, then we are not adding value to the organizations. Right assessment is an important thing, which is even called in our scriptures. In Vedanta philosophy, they always say that, you have to do a right assessment of yourself first. To live in the world, you have to do a right assessment of yourself. What are you? I'm saying, what are you? What is your team? What is your capacity? What is your domain knowledge? What are your strengths? And what are your weaknesses? And then, when you are dealing with the world, in the philosophy, it is said that you can't change the world, so better do a right assessment of the world, a right assessment of the people you are working with. You have stakeholders, what are their expectations? Different expectations, if you have to assess the expectation. Maybe work on it and see how you can perform better. They will not change overnight. Perhaps you can have some influence, but you have to work on it. My experience tells me, and I wrote an article about 35 years back when I was working in telco. Are accountants good salesmen? I was an accountant at that time. Today also I find there is an improvement, but still accountants, the finance guys, auditors, they are not that good in advocacy. They are so busy with their routine work. They are so busy with the finalizing the accounts, finalizing audit reports and presentations that they don't look, they don't think, they don't have time to build relationship. I'm not saying building relationship is you need to compromise, but my experience is that the same thing if you say in a particular manner after having some relationship building with either the auditees or the audit committee members, perhaps you can do things in a better way, different way. And last point I want to mention is the current opportunity for the consultants as well as the internal auditors. You see, all these scams, frauds, what have happened, one thing is clear, that the financial control, the control environment and the financial controls, weaknesses lead to all that. It is not the audit weakness, because people sometimes say auditor has not found out. That is not the point. The point is, it is the financial control weaknesses, the control environment, which have led to these scams. So therefore, we have to focus on, and the government also is supporting. I mean, though government is at the now very difficult situation, but government has started exercise of improving financial controls and using IT in the last couple of years. But it's a vast country. It takes a lot of time to think, to improve, especially with the democracy that we have. So the role of accountants and consultants in particular is to take up with the central government and state government organization, take up with the Auditor General and others, and RBI, other institutions, and do a private-public partnership. Various models have to be worked out, have to be talked about, have to be discussed in various forums with various institutions, and see that we have a helping hand to the government in improving their processes. And similarly, the role of internal auditors in saving some money for the country. The buying processes in our country, I was reading some other day a statement from somebody in the paper that the weapons that we have bought, there was a lot of controversy, etc. So the problem was of the specifications, and the specifications have not been changed for the years. Now, this is a small thing, but if you look at the buying that government is doing, look at the grants that government is giving to the various organizations, look at the subsidies. Subsidies are very complicated, leave subsidy for the timing. Look at the defense buying. The huge amount of money is being spent. And if auditors can save, can do partnership with the audit firms and the government, perhaps a saving of 5–10% would not be difficult, and that would mean huge amount of money, but we have to work on. And last but not the least, I want to also have a word of caution to the consultants. I have been dealing with consultants a lot, including the top big four and all that. See, the quality of delivery is very important. So if we are taking more than what we can chew, or not doing enough to improve the quality of our team member, just 1 or 2 members' quality will not be adequate. We have to, if we are not able to do that, in the long term, the profession will suffer. So my appeal to the consultant is, please look into your own team, right assessment of the quality, and see how we can improve the quality and delivery. With that, I have taken a little bit more time than I will do, but I think with that I thank you very much and close. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chawla, for bringing us up to speed on RDA India and the many steps it's taking to ensure that the internal audit profession in India scales new heights and in the process is heard and heeded to loud and clear. May I request Mr. Phil Tarling, Chairman of the Board of IIA Incorporated, to kindly join us on stage with Mr. Chawla and Mr. Ghosh. They will now take questions that you may have on any general related subjects. We were a little rushed for time yesterday, so we've had to truncate some of the Q&A sessions, but we have the big three on stage and ready and willing to take your questions. Please hold up your hand. We'll have a mic passed around, and your questions will be answered. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My question is for Chawla, sir. You just mentioned some while ago that if there is any fraud...
Excuse me, if you could please stand up so they know exactly who's speaking and can look in your direction. Sure. Thank you.
Some while ago you mentioned that in case if there is a fraud, then primarily, let's say, finance team is responsible and internal audit may not be held responsible for that. My view is that if, let's say, there are weaknesses in financial controls, then there are, let's say, multiple lines of defense. And even if, let's say, finance team themselves have intentionally or unintentionally committed a fraud, then it is role of internal audit to detect all those things, what they have done. And I think that internal audit cannot just wash away hands saying that finance is first line of defense and we are not responsible and things like that. So I think audit should take equal responsibility of any fraud which has been committed. So just wanted to know your views on this point.
I think the intention of Mr. Chawla was to say that if a control mechanism is in place and that control mechanism has been flouted, then if the internal auditor doesn't catch hold of that, then he's at fault. But the point is where the control mechanism doesn't exist at all, his role as a consultant exists. He has to advise the management to impose or implement those control systems. That's why I thought I will make a couple of things I did not mention at that time. It is with regard to the standards. You know, IIA Inc. has already published all the internal auditing standards that they can think of for all these years. It is in place in many countries. You take Europe, you take USA, you take France, Germany, even in Colombo, Sri Lanka, and in some cases in Pakistan also, these internal auditing standards are in use. It is widely accepted by government agencies, accepted by World Bank, agencies such as International Monetary Fund and so on. As against these, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India has also published almost 17 internal auditing standards. I mean, you must be aware about that. But the basic problem lies in the philosophy of thinking of that. The Institute of Chartered Accountants internal auditing standards are applicable to its members. Now, if we go by the basic tenet of our suggestion, as I mentioned, or even Satish mentioned, that internal auditing activity is essentially a multi-dimensional, multi-professional activity, and it cannot be restricted only to accountants. If we go by that concept, what happens in a company where the chief internal auditor or the audit head or the team consists of a majority number of the members who are technical people, engineers, various disciplines, and also cost accountants, and also chartered accountants. Now, who, for violation of the Institute of Chartered Accountants internal auditing standards for violation, who will be blamed? Who is going to be hanged? I'm not clear. Now, the greatest advantage that has happened in the recent times is the Companies Act. The new Companies Act, which is going to be in force, I think section 138 or something, it talks about the internal auditing standards. For the first time in India, it has happened that internal auditing standards are recognized. Internal audit is recognized. The profession itself is recognized. But it says only chartered accountants and cost accountants and such other people as may be approved by the board. This is quite a wide, it has got wide connotation, and I'm thinking that IIA Council, together with other people, should try to influence or convince the government that the right body which is going to be of effective use will be the Institute of Internal Audit, members of the Institute of Internal Auditors, and they are going to give a lot of importance to these activities. So therefore, gentlemen, I mean, it is what pondering what is going to happen in the near future, and it is going to be a great future for members of the Institute of Internal Auditors. And the clarificatory questions that need to be clarified, with regard to the applicability of the standard. What happens if a chartered accountant is at fault? I mean, the gentleman who has asked this question. If a chartered accountant internal auditor has defaulted, it is Institute of Chartered Accountants who can take disciplinary action against him. What happens to an engineer? Does the Institution of Engineers have such kind of disciplinary mechanism? I know a cost accountant can be, disciplinary action can be taken against a cost accountant. I mean, now, what happened to the other professionals? So therefore, there is a gap. There is a communication gap, or there is a gap which is likely to create some problem and which needs to be resolved out. With this, I request President Satish to speak.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. I think it's a good point raised by you. First of all, I have not absorbed auditors of their responsibility on any fraud. So that was not the intention. Maybe if I have not communicated well, it is my fault. Second point is the first primary responsibility lies with the control mechanism. Financial controls play a very big role. Whether it's a technical function, whether it is a buying function, the control processes have to be in place. And the experience shows, at least my experience definitely tells me, that when internal auditor puts into his report that standard operating procedures are not there, the processes are not in place, and then the authority and accountability is not clearly established, blah, 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 the management do not take it lightly till the time something happens. Now, when something happens, then it says, what was the auditor doing? The auditor was doing nothing but telling you in clear terms that these processes are not in place. So my point, basic was that first of all, control, financial, initially audit comes later, first setting up of control processes and control mechanisms. And there, the financial head, CFO and management has an important role. Thank you.
I think it's important to remember that fraud primarily is, or fraud investigation, detection, prevention, is primarily the duty of management. Obviously, internal audit assists in the preventative mechanism by looking at the internal control, evaluating internal control, and pointing out any weaknesses. Also, internal audit can assist in detection whilst they're undertaking their internal audit. But I think you have to remember that fraud is not internal audit's responsibility, fraud investigation, fraud prevention. It is management's responsibility. And it does clearly, it is stated clearly by the Institute of Internal Auditors that it is not our responsibility. And if we start accepting responsibility for fraud investigation, you're going down a long, slippery slope back to just doing the ticking and bashing that we used to do years ago. We need to be looking at systems preventing risk. In my experience, and I was a fraud investigator, an organised crime investigator for 8 years, and in my experience, fraud happens because of opportunity. That's all, opportunity. And often, it's not a weakness in the control system. It's actually they find an opportunity. Because anything we can design, a fraudster can find a way around. We have to remember that. We have to make it as hard as possible, but we will never, ever prevent fraud from occurring.
Thank you, Phil. There's a question that in a statutory auditor, while submitting his report, there's a requirement of company's auditor's report order, where he's required to comment whether on a company under report, is there any fraud committed on or by the company? There's a difference between the word on the company, which is expected that the fraud is committed by an outsider, whether by a company. When you say that it's entirely management's responsibility, I agree with you when it comes to the fraud committed by the company, so management has to explain it properly. But when there is a fraud on the company, I think I would agree with Satish that the internal control mechanism, which is not really in place, have actually played a negative role as a result of which such fraud has happened. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, I mean, I can only comment on the fact that there is a principle of internal audit that we do not and are not responsible for the investigation of fraud, the prevention of fraud, or the detection of fraud. Now, if you have a company law that requires internal audit to be in that position, then you will have to judge the professional requirements against that company law. I cannot sit here and accept that internal audit has any responsibility for investigation or detection of fraud. You have a role when you're looking at systems, when you're looking at control mechanisms. You have a role in ensuring that they're as secure as possible, and that is against outside interference as well as against inside interference. But I work in the telecoms industry, and quite honestly, the money available in the telecoms industry makes fraud inevitable. You know, we can't, there's no way is it not going to happen, because the amount of money available is immense, and people get tempted by vast amounts of money and the opportunity. So we have to try and prevent the opportunity. I'm not saying that we don't. All I'm saying is that we can't bear the responsibility.
I have one supplementary question. See, while the audit professionals are very clear that it is not the auditor's responsibility in respect of fraud, but the public perception is exactly the opposite. What are the institutes doing to convey this message to the general public as well as company managements and the boards, who seem to find the first excuse and blame the auditors? So this is one I want to ask.
I think it's a very, very good question. And I only can honestly say that we are not doing anything, to be honest. Now, having said that, I think this is a good question, and perhaps we will take this into our plan and see how we have some programs or something, some workshop or some communication jointly with some institution, and make this part as a specific subject, so that the greater awareness of what you are saying is attacked, and at least people are should be more aware of who is first at fault, not necessarily the auditors. Because what you are saying, perception is right. What was auditor doing? And when auditor was putting in their report, I can tell you, nobody listens. You know, nobody listens when we say there is no standard operating procedure. Nobody listens. Nobody listens that when a country manager is posted, he doesn't have a charter of what to do. Nobody clearly mentions that a financial controller, when he is posted in an outside country, these are the 10 key things he has to be known, he has to know, and he has to be trained before he is posted there. Nobody listens. So the people-related policies, which are normally HR-dominated, if they are flouted, the auditor can only pinpoint that. And then if there is no appreciation and no action on that, obviously the fraud will come. Not necessarily fraud will come, may come. The probability of fraud increases when your control environment is weak, when the processes are weak. And that is where I am saying it is the responsibility of the finance functionaries. I am really saying again and again, finance functionary, to make the processes strong. Because finance has a much greater power. Cloud in organization, they are in the management board, executing board, when they are all the authority, responsibility, SOPs, procedures, policies are made. So it is they who have to take the lead in making the procedures strong, control environment strong. Auditor has a responsibility, yes, but auditors cannot do a lot because there are limitations to what he can do. He is not a concurrent auditor. You see, if there is a concurrent auditor, you can blame. But there are so many factors which are playing, and auditors has limited resources and all that. So I think what you are saying is right. We would look into this definitely. And Nagesh is here. He is our professional development committee head. I think this aspect needs to be taken care of so that greater awareness of this is there in the public. Thank you.
I think your perception is absolutely right. What is required is more communication. People have to be made to understand what is an audit. That has to be understood. It is a common view of general public. Oh, there is a fraud in that company. What the hell auditors were doing? Whether it is statutory auditor, internal auditor, that's a different issue altogether. It's a common perception. But we have never, ever tried to bring that communication gap breach that communication gap. We have not really done solidly on this, either the Institute of Chartered Accountants or ourselves. So we are a minuscule organization compared to the Institute of Chartered Accountants. But the fact is, we need to educate the people and bring down this gap. It is very, very essential. Otherwise, what happens, that the message that goes to the entire echelon of the general public at large is that auditors have not done anything. I quite agree with you, and there is a communication gap. Somebody has to do something to take care of this.
I think we're our own worst problem, actually. If I want to get a good audience for a presentation, then I'll put fraud on the agenda. And the internal auditors will swarm to that meeting because fraud is sexy, fraud is adventurous, you know. You could be catching a real arch criminal. You know, we love it. And we're our own worst enemy because we do it. Now, at Harvey, I'm stopping that. I've told the company we don't do investigation, not the auditors. I'm employing ex-policemen to do the investigation. They're not auditors. They know how to investigate. They can do a proper job of investigation. And it becomes, therefore, a service that management have, an investigation service. So let's stop, firstly, doing the investigations. Once we stop doing the investigations, we show our own management that it isn't audit's role. Once we show our own management that it's not audit's role, then it will start becoming communicated throughout the general public, etc. So let's take the first step and stop doing those investigations.
Good morning. My name is Saras. I have a question which I'll divide in two parts. The first one is, traditionally we found that the internal audit team mostly has skills in the finance function. We are traditionally either chartered accountants or cost accountants. So when we go in to do an audit, say, of a delivery area or anything like that, we realize that, you know, skills are lacking. And what happens as a result is the process owners come back to us saying, you don't understand this business. So how, as internal auditors, can we scale up to that? That's part one of the question. And part two of that is, given our skills, we end up looking more on the finance side. We tend to look at everything from the finance angle. So we kind of get to the last leg and try and work backward. So when we do that, we get blamed by the finance function saying we have enough audits, we have the tax audit, we have the statutory audit. Now your internal audit also, for everything, come back to us. So it's actually, you know, I face this challenge in a few of the organizations that I've worked. So I just wanted your view on that.
Well, to take your second one first, globally, about 17% of internal audit time is spent on finance audits. The rest is spent on operational audits. So globally, there is not any priority given to finance. I'm probably very unusual in this room because I'm not an accountant. I guess most of you are accountants. Yeah?
Any non-accountant, please raise your hand? Oh, great.
Oh, there's a few of us. Great. That's what we want to see. Sorry, accountants, but it is not a financial discipline. Internal audit does not require accountancy. And I'm one of the best examples because I'm chairman of the Global Institute of Internal Auditors, which has 185,000 members, and I am not an accountant. I've never wanted to be an accountant. I've never studied accountancy. So, sorry guys, but that's what it's about. So I think we have to be very, very clear that the discipline is not necessarily an accountancy discipline, And we have to bring in people with a variety of skills. And one of the areas that we try to do in my own firm, and I know a lot of other firms do this, is they bring people in from the business. Now, I'm lucky because I have 200 internal auditors. I actually have a budget for 300, but I need to get proper skilled people. So I'm not using that budget at the moment. But within that 200, I can afford to bring in 30 or so specialists from the, device side, from the infrastructure side, so that we actually have the expertise. Now, the normal answer, if you haven't got expertise in a particular area and you can't get it from your in-house area, is to actually bring in a co-source so that you do have that expertise. Now, I know that's not always the answer, and so therefore what I would suggest you do is you actually spend some time with that business process so you actually understand what their business